Throughout the results, there is a developing pattern of the younger audience being disillusioned with the news in general, contrasting with the older generation, whom tend to consume a greater amount of news. I decided to ask both females and males so that the subsequent answers would have a more accurate consensus and thus no bias. This result is probably the consequence of asking predominantly younger people, however this will allow me to understand the reasons behind this apparent trend so that I can avoid them when producing my own news programme. I can also identify which aspects of news already appeal to people who watched it minimum weekly so that I can include them into my own news broadcast to make it appear more professional as well as desirable to the audience. From this I was able to conclude that national news and local news were equally as popular, whereas Newsround was clearly the least preferable. As Newsround targets a younger audience in contrast to the other two, this data denotes that any broadcast should be formal, detailed and personalised in order for it to appeal to the audience. This has indicated to me that any local broadcast should consist mainly of soft, light-hearted news stories, therefore so should mine. The following pie chart is also indicative of this. This confirms my findings from the previous questions feedback. From this information I've learned that the gender of the reporter relative to a certain story or report can be important. Despite some people having no qualms on this matter and others arguing representation of both genders regardless of topic, some do express preference. Therefore, it is conclusive from my research that having a male sports correspondent and a female weather report for my broadcast adheres to the codes and conventions of a typical news programme and also fulfils the expectations of some of my audience. This graph has shown me that my target audience would want to see 2 short interviews with Vox Pops during the broadcast and potentially 3 at a push. I've decided that my final broadcast will comply with these results. The results of this question have shown me that a weather report is an essential aspect of a local news broadcast as the vast majority of people surveyed feel it is an important factor in helping them decide whether or not to go out or to drive in certain conditions. Although a few people surveyed answered no, one reason given was that it could be used for another story. However, the majority of people clearly felt that weather was a key aspect and also pull factor of any professional broadcast. This data is extremely helpful to me as feedback for how local news can be more appealing to people of my own age, a section of my target audience. It is clear from the results that my broadcast should be specific to young people, perhaps not social media-esque or news about celebrities, but definitely more personalised to them. It is also a notable mention that on another question 9 people preferred local news to anything else, yet younger people questioned here mostly still found it unappealing. This indicates to me that local news is preferable because it involves news about local events, but it fails to tailor news to the different ages and groups in society, something I need to find a solution for in my own product.